Is there a live? Oh, there it is. Lafayette, Mandala, Bibi Fahoudie. It's your favorite warrior, Black Panther, in the building. Thank you, everybody that's tuning in this Sunday. Give me a second. Share this link out. Okay, let's see if I can. Nope. All right. Just link out. Just link out to the people. Brother Sean, how you doing this morning, man?
If you can hear me over my alarm, and man, I'm doing real good right now. They out here cutting the grass right by my head.
Oh yeah, man, you sound good, man. I don't even hear.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, man, chilling, man. Just want to say peace to the whole chat. People walking in, coming in late, like the show, share the show. We're about to get it in, man. I'm trying to share it myself.
Just trying to share the link. Trying to share the link. This new the software we're using, you can't share the link until you actually create the video. So it's a little different than what we used to on the YouTube platform, but we're making it work. Give everybody a few minutes. We still actually early. Said I was gonna start at 11. Peace to Too Smooth 71. Peace to Alan Green. Peace to Enigma 9x9. Peace to everybody tuning in, man. I appreciate it. We're gonna get into this topic today. That's a bit of it's a bit of uncharted waters, to be honest. But we're gonna get into it today. Get into it today. Just trying to make sure everybody has the link before I get started. You know how we are, boys. You get rolling, people. Oh man, you ain't tell me. I'm trying to avoid that right now. Trying to avoid that right now. Specific people asked to be tagged, so that's what I'm doing. That should be the last of the people right there. Okay, before I get into the presentation, shameless plug, Killmonger's Corner. If you haven't got your copy of the first ever Conscious Community Pan-African Journal, you can get your copy on Amazon. You can hit me up on Facebook. The link is the link below this video, Brother Sean. Yes, it is. I see it.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So the link is in the description of this video. You can buy it from me directly. You can do whatever it is you please. Please support first ever Pan-African Conscious Community Journal. Wanted to do this to show the academia, the world, our neighbors, everybody within our voice that we're not a bunch of conspiracy theorists, not a bunch of crazy people as they try to paint us out, that we have real scholarship, real information, real sources, and just real serious about what we do. So that's what I did it for. Pick it up at your earliest convenience. Killmonger's Corner, Conscious Community, first ever Pan-African Journal. I also would like to announce that next Sunday, I will be bringing on a teacher of mine. Brother Ogoun will be on. He is a Ogoun priest in the Ogoun tradition, and we will be interviewing him on how to get started in the tradition. Now, that's going to take on a new meaning after my presentation. And I forgot to get my water. That's the one thing I always forget. So give me a second, because when you talk for an hour straight, you need some water. All right, family. I got my water. So I'm ready to get into this. All right. It's my first time doing it on this platform, so bear with me here. Okay. Bang. That should do it. Can you see my screen, Brother Sean?
Yes, sir. See it good.
All right. The title of this presentation, Regla De Ocha's Influence on the Diaspora, Orisha Practice, by myself, Black Panther. And we will go over these terms if you're not familiar with them. Regla De Ocha, Lukumi, Santeria, Isese. We're going to go over all these terms. And we're going to paint a picture of how Orisha practice in the diaspora, meaning outside of Africa, is heavily influenced by Regla De Ocha. And what that means for practitioners, and what that means for the tradition itself. Oh, I forgot to hit full screen. And I'm trying to remember how to do it. Y'all bear with me, I'm a little rusty.
Hit the play button at the top. Next to keynote
the play
live.
button. I see it. Okay. All right, now we in there. So let's move on from this slide. Okay. So the first thing is they're going to ask me, who the hell are you to give this presentation? What gives you the rights to even talk about this? Well, these are two pictures from my initiation. The picture on your left is from my Ogoun initiation. The picture on your right is from my Ifa initiation. I recently completed those initiations probably about 3 months ago. Before that, I was initiated into the Ogoun Society. So before anybody throws a fit, says what gives you the right and all this other stuff, I am an initiated practitioner, and I take this practice very seriously. So now that we got that out the way, let's keep going. This is a disclaimer. The thoughts, research, and feelings of this presentation are not indicative of any Eleke, which means temple or house, Egbe society, or any other affiliation I belong to. So don't try to contact my Babalao and say, man, he says messed up stuff, or my Alakba, or my Baba Ode, or my anything, because this is me. You got a problem with what I say today, you come to me, nobody else. This is Black Panther in the flesh giving this presentation. All right, let's move on. Panther, what is Regla De Ocha? Regla De Ocha is an Afro-American religion of Yoruba origin that developed in Cuba among West African descendants. Regla De Ocha literally means the rule of Ousa. Ousa is short for Orisha. The Yoruba people carried with them various religious customs, including a trance and divination system for communicating with their ancestors and deities, animal sacrifice, and sacred drumming and dance. The need to preserve their traditions and belief systems in a hostile cultural environment prompted enslaved Africans of various ethnic groups in Cuba, starting from as early as 1515, to merge their customs with aspects of Roman Catholicism. So basically, Regla De Ocha is a fusion of traditional African Orisha worship with Roman Catholicism that happened in Cuba starting in the year 1515. What or who are the Lukumi? The Lukumi are an Afro-Cuban ethnic group of Yoruba ancestry that practice Regla De Ocha. The Lukumi people are also found in Colombia. The term Lukumi was given to Yoruba-speaking slaves, or as they call them in Spanish, emancipados, from intercepted slave ships after the abolition by the authorities. We know who the authorities are. I use the widespread Lukumi spelling with a K. It is a Yorubanized orthography. Orthography is basically how we spell things, for those that aren't familiar with that term. You will not find a lot of C's in Yoruba. So that's why I spelled it with a K, but you will see it spelled with a C as well. And it works better in the multilingual context. The Lukumi version is with the C, is used in Spanish literature, especially in the older books. Lukumi, rarely Anago, is also used for the remains of the Yoruba language in Cuba, sometimes called a sacred language because it is used liturgically in songs and prayers dedicated to the Orisha over the generations. It changed from the tonal language into a fixed vocabulary. Now, we're going to get into that a little later because the Yoruba language is a tonal language. And what that means is they have different tonal marks on words that make them either mean different things, or it could mean, it could basically turn it into a totally different word. The phrases are memorized by people who speak Spanish as their everyday language. Now, let's stop right there. Understand that when African slaves were transported to Cuba, they took their tradition of Orisha worship with them. When they did that, the tradition took on a new context. Now, years and years go by, and the language is not really dead, but it's not a living language anymore. What I mean by that is people are not speaking it on the day-to-day basis. So like it says here, the phrases are memorized by people who speak Spanish as their everyday language. This is what I'm talking about. If you memorize something for the sake of ritual and you're not living in that language, over time, you forget the meanings of those words. And it becomes what we call, like in sports, you just going through the motions. You don't really know what these words mean, but you know it's right to say, but you may forget the meaning of what you're really trying to convey. And after several years and generations, that's what happened in Cuba. Lukumi derived from the common Yoruba greeting Olukumi, which means my friend. And that slaves used this phrase to communicate to the new Yoruba-speaking slaves arriving in Cuba to indicate that they were not alone in a foreign land. Now, I'm going to, I have a reference for this slide. A company called Orisha Image did the research on this particular slide. They have several other theories to the word Lukumi and where it actually comes from, including old maps that show an African kingdom named Olakumi. But that is on their website, Orisha Image. If you go on there, you'll see a blog that they have called Lukumi, and you can get more information on this word there. I just wanted to give you a brief synopsis of what and who the Lukumi people are and how it's used. What is Santeria? There's some people looking at me sideways right now because they're like, why did you separate Lukumi and Santeria? Well, this is why I did it. Santeria is also known as Regla De Ocha. Santeria is a Spanish word that means worship of saints. Santeria is influenced by synchronized Roman Catholicism. It is a Spanish slang term for Regla de Ocha. So this is why I did this, because you will have people that will say, oh, that's Lukumi, or that's Regla de Ocha, or that's Santeria. And they use these terms like they're not connected. I wanted to show that this word Santeria is the same as saying Regla de Ocha. And when you say Lukumi, you're actually talking about the Lukumi people, not really referring to the system, but we kind of use that as a slang for Santeria as well. So all three essentially mean the same thing. And the example I have at the bottom, like we say about the NBA, we call it the league. So the NBA would be Regla de Ocha. The league would be Santeria. Now, this may be a new term for a lot of you. What is Isese? Isese essentially means primordial time. It refers to all that gave birth to us and the culture and all that existed before us. This refers to the system being virtually undateable and existing since a time immemorial. It is often the shortened form of a few phrases that allude to the umbrella that incorporates all traditions within a Yoruba paradigm. Also refers to one's immediate ancestors, father, and what is called your Ori. And the source for that is Ogunda Oworin, which is an Odu, in which you will find your immediate ancestors, your father, and your Ori being referred to as an Isese. Now, some examples. Isese Lagba Agbaye, which means the traditional system, or Isese, is the most senior worldwide. Isese Isin Orisha Ibible, which basically means primordial time, religion, natural forces, tradition. Now, why am I using this word Isese? Well, as I stated, it alludes to the umbrella that incorporates all traditions within the Yoruba paradigm. Now, I know some people are thinking, I thought that word was Ifa. It's not. And I'm going to show you why we shouldn't call this system, this entire system, Ifa. Now, before we go forward, Isese Isin Orisha Ibible or Isese Lagba, traditional West African Orisha practice. That's what we're talking about when we use these phrases, Isese. If you hear somebody say, oh, well, I only practice Isese, they're talking about the traditional West African Orisha practice. If you hear somebody say that they practice Santeria, Lukumi, Regla De Ocha, this is the Orisha worship in Cuba and other parts of South America that influenced the diaspora to this day. I want to get these two defined and in your brain before we go forward. All right. Before we go forward, special thanks to the African ancestors and the Lukumi people, because if not for them keeping this tradition alive in South America and Cuba and all other parts where you see this tradition, we would not have it in the United States today. We just wouldn't have it. It would have been erased. So special thanks to all people who kept this tradition alive. Modupe Popo, which means thank you very much. Modupe Popo to all the people who kept this tradition alive. Okay, so how did Regla De Ocha get to the United States? In the 1960s, Cuban Babalao started to migrate to the United States of America. They would practice in secret for almost a decade. So in the 60s, where things were very turbulent for African Americans, the Cuban Babalaos were practicing this tradition in secret. In the 1970s, in the 1970s, priests started to see African Americans be interested in the Yoruba culture. So around the 70s, you start to see people go, what is that you're doing? You say it comes from Africa. And remember, we got prominent leaders telling us that we came from Africa. So this is where the interest started to come into play in the 1970s. The key figures, a man named Chris Oleana, he was one of the key figures of bringing Regla De Ocha to the United States of America. And a name that probably some of you recognize, Oba Oshe Ijeman Adefume, who was the first king of the Oyatunji village in South Carolina. If you don't know or not familiar with Oyatunji village, it still stands today. It's in, I believe, Shelton, South Carolina. Brother Sean has been there. And it is a village which they practice some form of Orisha worship. So I know you're probably asking yourself this. What's the big deal, Pantha? Orisha worship is the same all over the world, right? No, it's not. Anybody that makes that claim has either not met these people from all over the world or is not really well versed in the Orisha tradition. The Orisha tradition is different everywhere you go. In Africa, it may differ from town to town. In Trinidad, which they have Shango Baptiste. In Cuba, where they have Lukumi. It just depends on where you are. Orisha worship changes. And we're going to go through over some of those changes right now. And we're going to highlight between the traditional practice and what you see in the diaspora, which is linked to Regla De Ocha. Yemaya becomes Yemaya. Understand that in traditional West African practice, Yemoja or Yemoja is a West African deity of the Ogoun River. This is not to be confused with the deity. She's also worshipped at creeks and streams. A lot of people are going, what? Because a lot of you think that Yemoja is a river divinity. Well, in the diaspora, I'm sorry, a lot of you think Yemoja think she's an ocean divinity, because a lot of you may go to the ocean to worship Yemoja. That is a diasporan adaptation. In the diaspora, she has become a divinity of the ocean, or sometimes the shallow part of the ocean. This narrative has seemed to be created in the diaspora, where she shares the ocean with Olokun, and she is the shallow part, and Olokun is the deep part. That is strictly a diasporan invention. In West Africa, like I said, she's a river divinity. That's it. In West Africa, the owner of the ocean is Olokun, and in fact, that is what his name means. Owner of the ocean. Now, I want to highlight the picture. That is actually the Ogoun River. That is where Yemaya is at in West Africa. Now, see how the tonal marks on the two words of Ogoun make those two different words? You have the Ogoun River, and then you have Ogoun with which is a low tone over the O and a high tone over the U. That is how you spell the divinity Ogoun. But since the first spelling of Ogoun has no tonal marks, we're not talking about the deity. These are little things that you should look for when looking at Orisha practice. Oshun becomes Oshun spelled with an H, and Oshun. Oshun is a West African, Oshun in West Africa is also a river deity that is associated with brass, especially the brass fan. You also see brass like blades. I'm not sure what type of blades they are. Maybe they're adas, I'm not sure. She's also associated with sensuality, honey, and her color gold and yellow. In a diaspora, the fan has been replaced with a mirror, which you see in the little statue at the bottom. She's holding a mirror, and she is associated with love, sex, and she is the captain of the light-skinned woman revelation. Why do I say that? Because every light-skinned woman that seems to come into the tradition in the diaspora has to be Oshun. I don't know what that's about. It's just something I've noticed. Now, notice in the picture at the top, that's an original depiction of what Oshun looks like. Notice that she's a mermaid. She's often depicted this way. So is Yemaya. I believe it's because they are river divinities and they live in the water, so that's why they depict them this way. But notice the two differences in the depictions. Notice the depiction in West Africa, and then notice the depiction which you see in the diaspora. Very different concepts. Ogoun is a hunter's wood carving and blacksmith deity. In Isese, Ogoun is typically kept outside. He protects the house. There's a saying in Isese, only a fool lets Ogoun in his house. In the diaspora, this has been changed to a black pot, which is popular amongst Regla De Ocha. Okay, let's refer to the pictures. You see all that iron and palm oil and different things that are put together that are metallic in substance. That's a traditional Ogoun shrine. It's usually kept outside because, like I said, it protects the house. And it's not the only shrine that's kept outside. We have to think about this logically. In Africa, they don't have the problem with people messing with people's shrines. They can leave their shrines outside. In America, you're going to have somebody come look at your stuff if it gets too big or it starts looking like that first picture. You're going to have somebody come look at it. So I believe that's why the adaptation was made to the pot. But you will see that popular in Regla De Ocha. You won't see that in Isese. The pots aren't used for that purpose, although I have heard of hunters using those pots for food, but not for the divinity. Orunmila becomes Orunmila. Orunmila is a West African. Oh, that's a typo. Is a West African Orisha. In its worship, it's a deity of divination, wisdom, and second to Oludumare, and is always seen with the Orisha Ifa. His worshippers are marked by brown and green beads, which you see at the top. In Regla De Ocha, he's known as Orunmila and wear green and yellow beads. You will also see the green and yellow colors in the diaspora, and the divinity has also become the same thing as Ifa instead of a corpus, oracle, or mathematics. Now, Orunmila is an Orisha on to its own. It is not the same as Ifa. In the diaspora, they've become kind of synchronized, but they are different Orisha. Although they're always with each other, they're not the same. Now, the difference in the colors relate to the palm fronds and the colors that they turn. In the diaspora, you'll see more of the yellow and green, which comes directly from Regla De Ocha. In West Africa, you'll see more of the brown and green. This is to drive home the point that Orunmila and Ifa are not the same. Now, this comes from a book called Iyere Ifa, which was written by the Aragba of Oshogbo, Yemi Elebuibo. It says, when Orunmila was poor, he consulted Ifa and was told not to worry about his impoverished condition, but to welcome and entertain some stranger who would be visiting him, an honored guest. When Orunmila was poor, he consulted Ifa. He didn't consult himself. This is the point I'm making. They can't be the same exact entity when you can consult Ifa and be Orunmila. What happened to Egungun worship in the diaspora? Well, in the diaspora, many of traditional implements of Egungun society have been replaced or modified. In the top picture is a traditional ancestor shrine called an Opaiku. The bottom pic is an ancestor shrine that is popular in Regla De Ocha and Palo. Okay, so I know some of you have heard of Palo, and the first thing you're going to tell me is Pantha Palo comes from the Congo. It does, but the version that made it to South America does not come from the Congo. In fact, if anyone is familiar with Dr. Fukiao and his books, a lot of his books have Congolese principles in them that are connected to the original Palo that you will not see in the version in South America. So let's go over the key points. The paisan, which is the whip. The whip is used on different Egungun priests to whip each other to alleviate the burdens of the town. This is a practice that is done in West Africa that you will rarely see in the diaspora, although I've seen it a few times. The Ishan Egun. The Ishan Egun is like a insignia of the Egungun. This you will not see in the diaspora. In fact, if you looked at the bottom picture, there's a stick in the back. That stick represents a staff. That staff is what replaced the Ishan Egun in the diaspora. The role of Egungun has changed. Most people know Egungun to just be ancestor. And not saying that you're wrong, but Egungun can also be a lineage divinity. Egungun can also be so many different things. There are Egunguns for Orisha societies, like the Hunters Egungun. Oya has an Egungun. Shango has an Egungun. So that role has kind of been erased in the diaspora, but it's very prevalent in Africa to this day. The Egungun Eleke, you will see this in your local botanicas and Egungun worshipers that wear this. Understand that traditionally, Egungun does not have an Eleke. No beads, for Egungun. Traditionally, society members wore red cloths around their wrists and waist to signify Egungun. And while we're on that subject, traditionally, Ogoun doesn't have any Eleke either. But I will get to that later in the presentation because I have a slide that talks about that specifically. I want to address this altar versus shrine. And I have to cite Oyawumi from Ilera for this, not only for the top picture, but that made me realize this. Traditionally, Africans do not have altars. Altars have focal points, and what is on the altar is what makes just that altar sacred. African people have shrines in which once you place an implement in a room, in a area, in a space, that entire space is now sacred. That is the difference. So a lot of people will use the term altar to describe African shrines, but I believe the correct term as far as English is concerned is shrine. And we got to talk about Gedinimbo. Gedinimbo is a Loa who is a leader of the spirits of the dead in Haitian voodoo. Formerly human, Gedinimbo was a handsome young man who was killed violently. After death, he was adopted as a Loa by Baron Samedi and Maman Bridget. This divinity has made it into the diaspora Egungun worship as a type of Eshu or intermediary made for the communication with the Egungun. Now, understand that I said this is a Haitian voodoo divinity. Somehow, it has made its way into the Egungun traditions in America. I believe they associated him with the Egungun traditions because of, like I said, in Haitian voodoo, he's the leader of dead spirits. But you will not see this divinity in Africa at all. Ifa takes control of everything. Now, I got to explain this slide because we alluded to it earlier. Ifa in West African Orisha worship is an Orisha oracle and divination system. His priests use an opele chain and a keen palm nuts to divine. Ifa is a separate system than other Orisha and is a jack of all trades but a master of none. In the Diaspora, Ifa is an entire system of Orisha worship and is placed above all other systems as if the other systems don't exist. It's a complete eclipse. What I'm trying to tell you, family, is the system of Obatala is its own system. The system of Shango is its own system. The system of Oshun is its own system. The system of Yemoja is its own system, and so on and so forth. They are not all under Ifa. I believe the reason why Ifa was chosen is, like I said, he's a jack of all trades and master of his own system. Within his oracle, you will find information about all of these different Orisha, but all of these different Orisha have their own system. And if you look in the system of that said Orisha, you might find some conflicting information of what Ifa says. Not to say that any one of them is wrong. It's just a different account. So that's important to know. That when you look at the Ifa version of things, and then you look at, say, the Orunmila version of things, everything might not be exactly the same. So this is why I call it a complete eclipse, because everybody will say Ifa doesn't lie. Go to Ifa. Oh, we need to do an Ifa reading. But there are other systems of divination, and there are other systems within individual Orisha practice that you can also go to. They kind of get thrown by the wayside. They kind of just get chucked out the door. But from a traditional West African perspective, all of these Orisha have their own system, and some don't even really consult Ifa with the frequency that we do. For example, if you're an Ogoun worshiper, Ogoun worshipers, particularly the hunters, they make a lot of charms. They make a lot of talismans. They're not running to get Ifa readings. That's just not what they do. It's just not their tradition. Eleke ceremony and the wearing of multiple Elekes. This denotes traditionally that you are a devotee of said Orisha. It was an identifier that you are learning the literature of said Orisha. This practice comes from the Regla De Ocha, in which a certain number of Elekes are given as an introduction into the Ile. So let's talk about this, family. You will see a lot of people that wear multiple Elekes at one time. Traditionally, as I said, that would mean that you are learning the literature of all of these Orisha, that you are a devotee to all of these Orisha. That's probably not true these days because of the Eleke ceremony. The Eleke ceremony is now treated like a type of initiation. You get an Eleke ceremony and you get interest into an Ile or an house. Then you may get what's called your warriors, and you get further into the house and get more Elekes. Traditionally, there is no Eleke ceremony in which you get 5 or even more than 1 Eleke. Traditionally, there are no warrior ceremony in which you get more Elekes. You just won't see this traditionally. Today, it's being done because that comes from Regla De Ocha. That is their practice in which they give 5 Elekes when you get entrance into the house, and even more Elekes when you get your warriors, and probably 1 more Eleke when you get initiated. That's just not how they do it in West Africa. In West Africa, you probably see a person wearing 1 Eleke because they are learning the literature of that said Orisha. And when I say the literature, it's a lot to learn from just one Orisha family. Trust me, I'm learning Ogoun literature and Ifa literature right now. And it's a lot of memorization, a lot of things you just have to memorize. You just got to know it. So what I want you to take from this slide is be careful of what message you're sending when you're wearing 10 Elekes. I'm not the one to tell anybody that anything is wrong. I'm just saying be careful of the message that you send. And finally, for this slide, you're really only required, and I don't like using the word required, but I use it in this instance. You're really only required to wear the Eleke of the Orisha or Orishas that you are devoted to, meaning that you are studying their literature, and you are planning to get initiated to these divinities. So for me, it would be Ogoun and Ifa, since I am initiated to those divinities, and Egungun. But I only practice traditional Isese. So I only have 1 Eleke to really wear because Ogoun and Egungun, as I said earlier, don't have an Eleke traditionally. Right off the mat to instant priest. There is a propensity in the Diaspora Orisha worship that one is called a priest as soon as one is initiated. Although one has all the rights, likes, and benefits of a priest, one has not been trained in several competencies to be called a priest. I've experienced this myself. I was called a priest as soon as I finished my Egungun initiation. And I sported that title for a while until I realized I didn't know how to do anything. And this is something that we need to stop doing in the diaspora because it sends the wrong message. If you call yourself a priest, you need to be competent in several areas. And I made a little list here. All of this is required for me, and we have not started our priestly training yet. But this is at the very basic level, right? So you need to know how to do Oshe and learning how to offer on behalf of someone. I'll go over Oshe later. It alludes to a calendar. You also need to know how to pour libation. You need to know how to pay reverence. You need to know how to chant praise names. You need to know how to do obi divination with the kola nuts, meaning of objects offered to the Orisha. You need to know how to do what's called ebo and bibo, which is under animal sacrifice. You need to have an understanding of the Orisha, meaning, and know a fair amount of orikis, which are like praise poems. You need to know more than what is used for just your Oshe Day worship. You need to know how to cool the divinity down. You need to know how to perform your annual sacrifice and rejuvenation of the divinity. And you need to know how to make what's called omi ero, or what some people say omero. Omero is just a blend of herbs that's used for different functions. So you see, this is just basic level stuff right here. You need to know how to do all of this before you call yourself a priest. And I got news for you, family. You're not going to learn all of this in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. It could take years. Oh. There we go. It could take years to learn all of this stuff. So in the diaspora, we need to stop calling people priests as soon as they get off the mat or as soon as they're finished with their initiation, because there's so much more to being a priest than just a title. Your learning has just begun. Now, this is also from the Eleke Ifa book, and I want to read this little passage. Initiation ceremonies for anyone who seeks spiritual help, and it is that Orisha that is responsible for the salvation of that particular person. It is necessary for a person to become a priest. Ifa will indicate it, and all necessary training programs will be arranged. It is clear that it is only through training and knowledge that an initiate can become a priest or priestess. Not how long one has been involved with Orisha, no one can become a priest without appropriate training from a good teacher. So this is also from the Araba, which is the head Babalao for Shogbo, Yemi Elebuibon, in which he talks about, it is clear you got to have training to become a priest or priestess. It's just like with anything else, family. You want to be a good basketball player, you got to go through training in the gym. You want to be a good mathematician, you got to do equations and train your mind to think like a mathematician. Whatever you're good at, driving, skydiving, track running, you have to have training, right? Orisha practitioners, Orisha priestess is no different. The Godfather, Godmother title. Okay, let's go over some terms. Oluwo, one's godfather. It's also a title in Ifa and Isese in general. Babalao, a trained Ifa priest. Iyanifa, a female trained Ifa priest. Babalorisha and Babalosa are Orisha priests. They're like general terms for it. Oga, a spiritual leader, boss, or supervisor. Understand that traditionally, one's Oluwo in Isese is a person that put the Orisha in your head. And when we talk about putting things in your head, we're talking about initiation. Also understand that traditionally, that's probably some person in your family, because if you grew up in a tradition and your family is involved in a tradition, your first teachers were probably your parents. We didn't have that benefit being shipped to the diaspora. I just wanted to give you the context. Different scenarios, different Oluwo. Oluwo, that is your parent. You may have more than one Oluwo. So if you're initiated to Shango and you're initiated to Ogoun, you may have two different Oluwos, which means two different people that initiated you, that become your Oluwo. Understand that somebody that gave you Elekes to join a house is not technically your Oluwo. You want to call them your Oluwo, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but traditionally, it's a lot deeper than that. We're throwing this godmother, godfather term around, and no one's explaining what exactly it is. So this is why I put this slide together. There are some other terms like Oga, spiritual leader, which does require you to be initiated for you to have an Oga. There are more terms in this tradition that I believe we can take advantage of instead of going straight to a godfather, straight to godmother. These are the Oshe days, and in the diaspora, they do not exist. Let me break this down for you. So you see Monday, first day, you see all those Orisha in those calendars. This is the day that we worship these Orisha. This is the day that we do what's called performing Oshe, in which you would cast Kolanus to communicate with those Orisha. For day number 2, same thing. This is the day that we communicate with those Orisha, and so on and so forth. Now, I want you to look at day 1 and I want you to look at day 5. Notice how it's the same day and the cycle has started over. So most people will say, oh, the Yoruba have a 4-day week. The Yoruba have a 5-day week because they count that 5th day as well within their week. So just wanted to give you that little background, but these days go every 5 days and then a new cycle starts. And this is the Oshe calendar. So if you are around someone that says, every Monday we do Oshun worship, although they have the concept down of Oshe days, that can't possibly be, because if you look at this calendar, all the Mondays are different. There's no possible way you could do that. So in the Oshe calendar and traditional Isese 5-day week, then it starts over. Depending on your Orisha, you may have sacred days within this calendar. Like I know Ifa, it's like day 5 and day 17, and it just depends on the calendar and how it moves. But this is the Oshe calendar. This is not present in the diaspora. This is one of the main differences. Actually, it says it on this calendar. If you look at the bottom right, you'll see Ita Ogoun, Ita Dogun. That's a sacred day in E5, and you can see on the 14th day that it's highlighted. So that was an example of what I was talking about. And you'll see that day again on the 30th. Let's move on. The flair. It's a lot of flair in the diaspora. At the top, that is Oloye Aikuola Iwindara, who is a titled Isese priest out of Abeokuta. And he is in Abeokuta there with a African priestess. And that is their pots. That is what they keep their Orisha in. Those are not cooking pots. Those are Orisha pots. Very different from what you see at the bottom, isn't it? And I don't have any problem with you beautifying your shrines. I'm just showing you the differences. In traditional West African Orisha worship, you won't see a lot of colorful, fancy pots for two reasons. Number one, they probably can't afford those big, beautiful pots. Number two, they're constantly doing work on these pots, work to include animal sacrifice. So you don't want really nice pots to get messed up. So you get generic pots. One of the best advice that I got when I started receiving Orisha is go to Goodwill and see if they got some good pots there. And that was a great advice because they had some great pots and I didn't spend a lot of money. If you go to your local botanica, you're going to spend some money. So this is just the difference in West African versus the Diaspora and Lukumi, or Regla De Ocha. Obi divination, or what's called Obi Dida. Obi divination is a West African Orisha worship divination system or method and a means of communication with the divinity. Obi divination is a complex system in which warnings, messages, appeasement, sacrifice, and the opening of multiple Obi Abata, which are kola nuts, can occur. In the diaspora, Obi divination is more simple and is only used for yes and no questions. Obi is also not done typical with kola nuts in the diaspora. Coconuts are used. This is a direct Cuban influence. Note, there is a system for worship and there is a system for consultation. They are not the same system. So everyone knows the story. Africans are in Cuba, enslaved. They don't grow the type of kola nuts that we use for Obi Dida in Cuba. So what they do is they use the coconuts. That has followed us to the diaspora. Not saying it doesn't work, not saying it's wrong. You just won't see it in Isese. And this is an example. If you look at the picture on your left, those are Obi kola nuts. You can see some of the meanings. You can see some of the words. That's traditionally Isese. Now, the words may differ from town to town, but essentially, it's the same system when you're talking about four-lobe kola nut. On the right, you see the coconut shells. This is what you will see in the diaspora. The Alafia, the Ejefe, the Atawa, the Okanran, the Oyeku. Those are all telling you yes and no. As you see on the left, these are telling you about character, victory, isolation, acceptance, good health. And even more comes out of that system than what is shown, but I wanted to show you the basics. So this is a main difference in the kola nut divination between Isese and Regla De Ocha. All right, I get this question all the time. Pantha, what are some good books that I can get on traditional Orisha worship practice? I have the answers for you, but there is a problem. There is a big problem with books in the Orisha, diaspora, Isese, whatever you practice. There's a problem with books. As I alluded to earlier, Ifa has a total eclipse in the diaspora. This has spread to the books that only talk from an Ifa perspective. You won't see any books that come from strictly an Ogoun perspective or an Obatala perspective or an Eshu perspective, even if they say Eshu, Obatala, or Ogoun on the cover. They're still talking from an Ifa perspective, and only the trained people can notice it. The other problem with these books are that the prices are outrageous. The problem, a lot of these books are out of print. So the people that have the books are price gouging. To the right, you see a book called Cradle of Yoruba Culture. It's written by my Babalao and Oluwo Araba Dayo Ologundudu. Do you see the price? Over $1,000. I got this from Amazon. Somebody bought my Baba's book and is reselling it for that price. Now, this isn't an anomaly. It isn't just this book. It's these books as well. Fundamentals of Yoruba Religion and Orisha Worship by Chief Fama, Fama's Orisha Yoruba Dictionary, and Understanding Yoruba Life and Culture by Nike S. Lawal. Now, I want to show you something, family. I want to show you something. Where is, okay. Can everybody still see my screen? I hope so. Look at the prices, family. This is Fama's Orisha Dictionary that I just showed you. The used, $827. This is the other book I showed you. We got 12 used for $235.69, but then we got one new version for $2,000. Now look at this, $869.56. This is the problem that we have, family. I don't really know what to do about that. My one solution would be, if anybody has these books, to start photocopying these books, because they're out of print. So the person that has written them is not selling them anymore. They're just being resold for unreasonable prices. So if you have these books, make a copy of these books while you can. Because I had to go through great lengths to get some of these books. But that's the problem with books. I recommend all these books to you, but I don't know if you can actually get them, family. I don't know if you could actually find them at a reasonable price. Okay. In the diaspora, colors seem to be attached to Orisha as the only color the Orisha represents. So for those that are Orisha practitioners, we know Ogoun is green and black, Oshun is gold or yellow, and Shango is red and white, right? Well, the picture to your top right are all Ogoun worshipers. As you can see, they're wearing a blue indigo with a red hat. This is a hunter's tradition. How do I know it's a hunter's tradition? Because I can tell by the hat. The hat is used to bring your kill home sometimes. You will find in Africa that Ogoun's color will be red. You will also see it as a very dark indigo. You won't just see green and black. The Elekes at the bottom. On the right, you see the traditional red and white that you're used to seeing, but the red and pink Elekes next to it are also Shango's Elekes. But you probably have never seen the red and pink ones, but you will find it. The picture to my bottom left, I want you to look at the middle Eleke only. That's an Oshun Eleke. Notice it's white and green. Has anybody ever told you that Oshun's colors are white and green too? Probably not. What I'm trying to get you out of the mindset of is, this is the color of this divinity. No, there's several colors to this divinity. So this is why Isese is important, to preserve the culture and to make sure that we are telling the entire narrative. And with that, we will go with the numbers associated with Orisha. You will see in the diaspora, numbers are associated with Orisha similar to numerology. When this is when people take numbers from a divination system and apply them to Orisha outside of the divination system. So a lot of people will say what are these numbers? 5 is Shango's number. 3 is Ogoun's number. All of this different stuff. Where they get these numbers from is a divination system called Ogoun, which is a cowrie shell divination system. And within that divination system, they're right, but not outside the divination system, because you'll hear people talk about the 7 Ogouns. And you're like, wait, I thought his number was 3. Exactly. He doesn't have one number. You'll see other numbers in these Orishas literature. And I cut this insert out from the book Ifa Women, A Broken World by Wishe Wande Abibola. And Wishe is a title that comes out of Ife that is given to Babalaos that have knowledge. You can't be in a Wishe if you don't have extensive knowledge of the system. So he says, and be advised, this whole book is an interview from a guy called Professor Ivor, and he's interviewing Wande Abimbola. So Professor Ivor says, Cuban Orisha have numbers which are sacred to them. For example, Yemaja's number is 7. Obatala's number is 8. Ileguwa, which is our Eshu, is number 21 because he is believed to have 21 avatars. One of these avatars is called Eshu, a trickster Orisha who resides at the crossroads and works at midnight. One day, Abimbola responds, in our case, Eshu is a generic term for all the aspects this Orisha has in the Ifa tradition. Some Eshu's forms are called Elegbara or Legba. The Cuban Yoruba, having lived in European context for a long time, have become more conscious about numbers, which seem to be ascribed to everything. This may be a carryover from a European context. What I'm trying to say is, family, don't make Orisha numerology. Be careful in how you practice Orisha worship. Tonal marks. I alluded to this earlier. We must understand that the tonal marks are the cornerstone of the Yoruba language. Yoruba does not have many words as other languages, but has the same words with many meanings. Hence, the tonal marks separate the word meaning. So look at this word. Well, this is actually a name below. Over the U, that's a high tone. Under the S, that's a dot that indicates a vowel. Over the other O is a low tone and a dot that indicates a vowel. So we have low tones, we have high tones, and if it has no diacritic mark or tonal mark, it's a mid-tone. There's also like a squiggly line that comes out of either S's, sometimes C's. It's denoting to a sh sound, an SH. And those are the tonal marks within the Yoruba system. You have to learn these tonal marks if you are serious about Orisha practice, because you will have a word that means different things and is only separated by the tonal marks. For example, a brother hit me up yesterday and said, Pantha, doesn't the word Ile mean land? And I said, yes, it does. But it also means house. It also means earth in some instances. It all depends on the tonal marks. But the ILE is spelled the exact same way. This is why you have to get serious about tonal marks if you're serious about Orisha. To compare it to Medu-Netre, the tonal marks will be the equivalent to a determinative for those that read Medu-Netre. All right, so you don't think Black Panther made this whole Isese thing up? If you see to the right, this year, recently, they had an Isese festival, August 14th through the 20th. I wish I could have been there. As you see below, Isese Day in Abeokuta. This was taken from one of the, my Instagram friends, Obatala Efunwale, who posts a lot of pictures from Nigeria in the Isese context. So he actually showed, that's actually a screen grab from his Instagram where he showed them celebrating Isese Day. Isese Day is a recent holiday as of this year. Nigerians have been pleading to their government for this day for many years, to my understanding, and now they finally have it. It is in conjunction with a few other celebrations like Shango Festival and Oshun Festival, but it is now a day. I'd like to see it move to have its own time frame, but I understand why they did it in conjunction because, you know, sorry about that. I believe they wanted to do it in conjunction because of how many people were there at the time, and they wanted max participation. So that's just me speculating. And these are my references, family. The second one, OrishaImage.com, that's what I was talking about with the Lukumi article. First one, the Oxford Encyclopedia of African Thought from Oxford University Press. The third one, the Yoruba and Cuba, Origins, Identities, and Transformations by Toyin Balola. It's a good book. I believe, it's published by Indiana University Press. Iyere Ifa, Tonal Poetry, The Voice of Ifa, an exposition of Yoruba divination chants by he was the Iwishe, now he is the Araba, Yemi Elebuibo. Both of those are titles within the Ifa paradigm, and just think of it as he got promoted. Ifa will mend a broken world by Awishe of Eleke, Wande Abimbola, the cradle of Yoruba culture by Mababala, Araba, Dayo, Ade Dayo, Ologun Dudu, Famas or Chief Fama, Ede Awo, the Orisha Yoruba Dictionary. I use that almost every day. And that's one of the books that I showed you that I need to get it copied before it disappears entirely or is priced out of all of our price ranges. Pictures. Thank you to Oloye Aikuola Iwindara. Thank you to Ariwa, in particular, Oyawumi. Special thanks to my Baba Ode Ogundiran. Thank you for your counsel and walking me through this process. So that's it, family. That's what I have. Do we have any questions from the chat? Any inquiries? What's going on, Brother Kofi? I see you in the building.
What's that? Peace. What's happening, man? I'm thinking it was 11 o'clock, supposed to be 11 o'clock my time. I forgot. You always, if you say a time, it's always an hour earlier than what I was. Shoot, I jumped up and came on. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the first beginning of it because I kind of missed some of your slides. I'm gonna go back and check it out.
Okay. So good. I see the truth historian is in the building. Peace, brother. Do we have any questions from the chat? Okay. The 7 African powers. Oh boy. Okay. This may be shocking to some people. 7 African powers have nothing to do with Orisha. The 7 African powers are intermediaries between the Orisha and man that comes out of the Candomblé system. I know that is contrary to what you see with the statues and how people put them together. And they always leave out Oya, which pisses me off. But originally, they have nothing to do with Orisha. Hey, no problem, Yasharel. No problem. We got any more questions from the chat? I appreciate you all for coming by and kicking it with me. Yes, I agree. To preserve the culture and make sure we are telling the complete narrative.
Somebody say they got a question. Sonny, okay, he's posted it now. Sonny Boko. He said,
What
what's
are
the
the
origin of voodoo?
Voodoo is a system that's out of Benin. Benin is the home of voodoo. Voodoo is a African system. Actually, voodoo actually has a version of Ifa in it. They call it Fa.
Mm-hmm.
But they do things a little different from Orisa practitioners, but they do have it in there. And when you become a Fa priest, you're called a Boko. But that system originates out of Benin.
Ben, when it gets when it makes it to Haiti, it becomes a little different though, right? You know,
Yes. When it gets to Haiti, it's called Haitian voodoo. And like Orisha, when it gets to Haiti, they have to synchronize it with, different religions to hide it. And different things change. So it went through the same process in Haiti as it did with Orisha in South America and Cuba. So you will see things that are different in Haitian voodoo, just like you will see things different in Lukumi than Orisha practice.
I got a question though, Ben. All right, okay, traditional. I know a lot. We have infused a lot of different things with the traditional. How what I'm trying to say. Okay, is it looked down upon like you mentioned, and we know certain things they practice, certain things, certain resources that they used on the continent, and when we got to certain places, we no longer had those certain types of resources, so we had to pick and choose different things in order to put it. Is they look down like, okay, you cola nuts, okay, the cola nuts, and let's just say the coconuts, okay, are they looked down upon just because they don't uh use the cola nuts, but they use the coconuts because they didn't have that type of cola nut in a certain area that they was in, or it? Because I'm asking because go ahead.
Are they looked down upon by who?
I'm just saying, I mean, I know, okay, a lot. I like you said, the traditional, the traditions. We infuse them with so many different things. So I know we're not practicing uh, uh, traditionally because we have infused it with so many different things. We are fusing with different Europeans, saints. We, like I said, we utilize certain other different things. So it's not practiced the same. So I'm saying is it looked down, or saying it's not practiced right because they're using something different than what the traditionalists use because they're in a different location?
Are you asking, do Africans look down upon us?
Yes, yeah.
Oh no, they don't. I can tell you that. No, they don't. They are, most people, from my experience, are just happy that the tradition is still alive in other places. Um, they don't look at it. They may not understand what you're doing, but they don't look down and say, "Oh yeah, you can't do that" or whatever. That's more of, in my experience, a diasporan thing where people will say that's wrong or this. Let me get something understood. I don't never tell nobody that something is wrong in most cases. I just separate the traditions. If this is what you do in Regla De Ocha, Got you. If this is what you do in Isese, got you. I just put it in its proper category. So it's not a issue for me. If somebody is using coconuts, then I know what background they're coming from, versus if somebody's using cola nuts, I know what background they're coming from. That's all it is for me. But I haven't encountered an African to say or to look down on a diasporian practice. I haven't encountered. I think somebody had a question in the chat. What's the name of the Ifa book that you had some highlights? It's called Iyere Ifa. I will type it in the chat. Iyere Ifa. And if you type that in, it's probably the only book that's gonna come up. It's by Yeme Elebuibon, who is now the Araba of Oshogbo. Around you, are there any customs that may be practiced in the average African American home that mirror these traditions that we be blind to, basically doing it without the knowledge of what they're doing? Customs, yeah, we all pour liquor out for our our dead homies. That's libations and traditional African spirituality, even down to the liquor part. Liquor is used in libations, very much so.
Especially in West Africa.
Hold on.
I got a question. Can you hear me?
Hold on. And more information on the African powers. It's most likely a system out of Puerto Rico and very popular in New York, for the person that asked.
Well, I say our true story said throwing of dice.
That sounds crazy, right? But I mean, I can kind of see where he's getting that from. But I wouldn't link it to an African spiritual system. But I mean, I kind of see where he gets that from. I can kind of see it, but I would say that divination is much more elaborate than that. How do I determine? Oh wait, Sister Juliana said, "Can you and Menati do a presentation on voodoo?" That I actually spoke with him about interviewing him probably a week ago. So yeah, that's in the works. I do want to interview him on voodoo because that brother practices the Benin version, and he also practices a Ghanaian version and has been to Togo, and he's got a wealth of knowledge. So I do want to bring him on this channel to discuss that. How do I to follow? There are Johnny Blocker. I would say start with your lineage, brother. You need to first figure out where your lineage is from in West Africa. Not that you can't practice something outside your lineage, but if that's important to you, I would start with getting a DNA test, finding out where your DNA lies, and go with a system from your lineage. But if you're an African American like me, you probably got a lot of stuff in your lineage. So, go with, what you feel is most comfortable for you, brother. Burning of sage. Yeah, you'll see burning of sage, but I will say burning of sage is more of a Native American thing than an African thing. Africans have different herbs that they burn. But the burning portion, yeah, I definitely agree. Just asking talking points for this conversation. Okay, bro. Same thing for you, brother Mathis. Find out where your lineage lies, brother. Okay. What about Ogoun? Ogoun, which I think you're referencing, Aaron Ogoun, which is the 16 cowrie shell divination method that are usually done by Orisha priest of certain systems. I know Obatala priests use Aaron Ogoun. And it's a divination system in which same concept as Ifa divination, but different odus, different way of determining things, and that's a divination system for specific Orisha that use it. Not all Orisha use Aaron Ogoun, but specific ones do. Are these systems religion? In my scholarly opinion, no. If you go back on this channel, I did an entire presentation on our African spiritual systems religions, and it's probably about an hour and a half long. It's not too long, and I explained why they don't fit into the categories of religion. All religious systems fit into a category, whether monotheism, polytheism, animism, so many isms that I didn't realize when I first started researching that topic, but they all fit into a category. African spirituality does not. What's the difference between African system and religion? I really want y'all to watch their presentation.
Well, it's so many on there. That's what frustrates me. I mean, you did one. I did a part 1, part 2. Then I came back last week and I did one confusion, I did chaos, misunderstanding, chaos, confusion, misunderstanding of African traditional religions, the Western attack, and attack by our own. Some it's a long title, but when we went through all of this last week too, we went through all of this last week. Y'all it's a bunch of the presentations on the channel that's talking about a lot of this. If y'all missed it, go back and look at Ben's presentation. Go back and look at it. Go ahead.
There's a reason why they're asking a question, because it came up last night. So it's going to continue to come up because of ignorance.
And that's but that's my thing though. That's my thing is, man, we continue to put the information on here, man. And
where did he come up?
Sean.
All right, so this knucklehead, because it's loud right here. So, but last night, the question came up again, was and someone was trying to use a wiki article to define if these spiritual systems were religion. Now, this guy uses a wiki article, and because it has Malifa Kita Ashante in it, he thinks that it validates the position of justifying what a religion is, not understanding the actual context of the conversation, because for one, he's never read Ashante's book. 2, he's never studied anything on the continent. And 3, it's a compilation of stupidity and ignorance on behalf of trying to argue how to define these systems and compare them to Western systems as well, and using English dictionaries and terminology to define African traditions and customs.
Brother Sean.
Yes, sir.
Where did it come up?
Oh, it was on Unc Show last night.
That explains a lot.
Right. It never comes up when you're around, yes.
Okay. It's the same. Is it the same person that made me do the presentation last week? Huh?
Yeah, but you know, it wasn't being engaged. I didn't engage the conversation at all. I just basically told him, man, you just understudy. You need to read, you know, and move on.
I have to know.
I gave him articles and information where he can go do his research, but he won't. He just want to continue to say, is this and that, is this and that, and this and that. He's comparing the two. He doesn't know the contrast. He doesn't know the differences between one system and another. He's just comparing the two. And then
I have to know that most people you meet will not have a problem with the word religion. Most people that you meet in African spiritual system, they're like, whatever. If you want to call it what you want. That's basically what their attitude is. It's up to the people that are in the tradition that are scholars to accurately analyze and see if this fits into what. I always ask the same question. What specific group does African spirituality fit into if it is a religion? And I always get crickets because they don't realize that all religions fit into groups. And they're not well versed in the groups to give me an answer. So they'll try to say, well, this is the same, and that's the same, and this is the same. Of course, there are some things that are the same. When you have the mother tree, the fruit it bears has a part of that tree in it. That's fine. You will see scattered things within different religions that you can say, oh yeah, they do that in African spirituality. And I'm not saying we don't, but there are 100,000 things that we do that nobody else does. There are 100 things that we have that nobody else has. There's 100 concepts that are present you won't find in religion. And I wouldn't care if it was a religion, to be honest, because it would be my ancestral religion. It would be something that came from my people. I just don't think that's the accurate word to describe it. I don't have a word in English to describe it. That's why I use the term spiritual system. That's the best I got. But there's a lot of things in African spirituality and in African languages that don't have any translations. I have to give you like a sentence. That's a rule of thumb for people. If you're looking for a translation of something in an African language and they give you a sentence, you don't have this concept in English. You just don't. Like the word Eshu. I got nothing for you in English. I have to describe this deity to you. There's not a literal translation. It's not like black, just mean black. White, just mean white. You don't have that for some words. Some of the things we do are non-transferable into the language that we speak, unfortunately. So I have to do my best to describe it. And sometimes that fails. Even if I give you a sentence, you'll be like, what? I'm like, you just got to see it. You know, it is what it is. But, you know, all the pseudos come out on Unc Show. You can tell them I said it. But it is what it is, man. If people have a problem with that, that's their problem, man. I prefer to see things through my ancestors' eyes. I prefer to do things that my ancestors did. I prefer to practice the way that they practice because I believe when we incorporate these things in our lives, we can see things the way they saw things, and we will no longer become an assimilate to this Western culture like Amos Wilson talks about. I believe there's power in your culture. So this is why I practice it. Now, that's not good enough for somebody. All right. I mean, you know, at some point I just don't care, but it is what it is.
Are African deities, specifically the Orishas, are they worshipped the same as the Abrahamic faiths?
No, they're
Right.
not. Abrahamic faiths. I'll tell you something that my old guy says. You know, Christians say we walk by faith, not by sight. Well, in Orisha worship, we walk by faith and by sight. We need to see it. It needs to be real. It needs to happen, or something else has to be happening. See, African spirituality is about work. It's not about, oh, let me just keep praying or let me pray harder. African spirituality is about work. You have to do something. That's really the difference between our divination systems and, say, Eastern divination systems or astrology divination systems. They always tell you something's going to happen, but that's it. They don't tell you how to avoid it. They don't tell you what you can do to fix it. It's just going to happen to you. You're going to die tomorrow. You go, oh, there's nothing I can do to no. But our divination system be like, okay, you need to do this. All right, you need to do that. This is coming your way. You need to stop thinking this way. That's the main difference. This is about work. You have to put in some work. It may be physical work, maybe mental work. You don't know what kind of work it's going to be. You may need to stop eating a certain food. You may have to give up something in a sacrifice, like just not eating that greasy chicken. You don't know what it's going to be, but you're going to have to do something. You can't just pray your way out of this in African spirituality. You're going to have to do something. That's the main difference in my eyes.
Any other questions?
Is Nahisi in the building?
Nahisi is in the building.
Oh, man. Nahisi is in the building. Shouts out to my brother, Nahisi. Always putting it down on the science tip, man. Mossi Warrior can. Spears is flying. Brother asks, is DNA testing the only way to find out your culture or lineage? You can go through genealogy, which is much more difficult, but you can do that. You can go to your local library and look up records and what's the other? I think you can do Library of Congress or something like that. It's very hard. I'll tell you that. People do years to do that. That's why I suggest DNA testing, because it's quick, it's easy, it's cheap, and you get your results and stay rolling.
Yeah.
I think I missed, brother.
Osain.
Yeah, I was trying to find it.
I got it if you want me to read it.
Sacred that we don't have the privilege to learn yet, and yes, I can appreciate that, but maybe oh yeah, oh you have no idea. This what I gave you tonight. This is nothing. This is basic stuff. This is just showing you the differences between Isese and Lukumi. And it's so much more to this tradition that I cannot share with you. And that's just what it is. It's like being the CEO of Apple. I can't tell you about the new iPhone that's coming out because you're not privileged to that information. So what you said is exactly right. Some things that are just kept sacred. Tools of the trade, things of how we make things, little things that help us remember stuff. It's just some things, that I can't share with you. Looking in the chat. What was the name that going to do interview? Oh, his name is Minuhati. He'll be on the channel real soon. Down here in Florida, the dirty South. When I talk about African spiritual, man, people look at me crazy. Here you go with that African stuff. It's sad. They love it. Oh, of course. I live in Atlanta, bro. And although there are a lot of practitioners in Atlanta, don't get me wrong, the majority is still at the church. So
come to Mississippi. Tell them to come to Mississippi. Where I'm at.
Nobody in their right mind live in Mississippi, including you. I like psychology. Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, brother Yasharel, you must have stepped out. The Ogoun that you're referring to, I believe, is Aaron Ogoun, which is the 16 cowrie shell method, which is only specific to certain Orishas. Every Orisha doesn't have 16 cowrie shell method in their corpus, but some Orishas do. That's a separate divination system from, say, Opwele or Akin or Kolina. All of these are separate divination systems. The coconut divination system is done with, if they are using coconuts, they use coconuts how Isese practitioners use kola nuts. So that can pretty much be done to every Orisha. It's a basic system that's used, well, they use it for yes and no, but it can be used for worship. Yeah, Ogoun is a Lukumi term. Yeah, you're right, brother Pickett. We say Aaron Ogoun, which refers to the 16 cowrie shells. You'll see people put Marin Ogoun, but that's referring to the number, which is 16. Oh, okay, Sean. Some comments you gotta just skip over. Indeed, coconut is also offered in cash for certain narration in West Africa. Oh, okay. But it's always in addition to cola nut, but never as a substitute. That's Oloye Aikuola Iwandara. I appreciate you for watching and supporting as well, Baba. I appreciate that. Oh, that's Oguniran. I forgot your last name was Pickett. Okay, so Oguniran will be coming on the channel soon. He's in the chat as Capria Pickett. Now I'm gonna bring him on for a one-on-one interview because he's gonna, now that we've got the Isese out the way, now he's gonna show you how to get started in Isese. Because it's a different process when you talk about Isese and Lukumi or Regla De Ocha and what you do to get started. So I'm gonna bring him on. Yeah, you're the best in the world, man. I forgot to announce you. It's a little inside joke between me and him, but definitely we're gonna bring him on for 2 interviews. 1, how you get started in Isese. 2, we're gonna talk about Ogoun. And Ogoun needs to be discussed because Ogoun's name get thrown around more than any other Orisha because of the situation that we're in America. I understand. We're at war. I got it. But you have to learn Ogoun's nature, what he's about, reason why people worship Ogoun, Ogoun's many different societies. Like I said in the presentation, everybody knows about the blacksmiths. Some people know about the hunters. Nobody talks about the wood carvers. Wood carvers are Ogoun worshipers as well. So that's something we're going to be bringing to the channel. And yeah. It's going to be good. Is West Africa the only part of Africa that African Americans are from? No. You will meet a brother that got, you don't know what he got in his DNA. You have to remember at some point, they start pulling from Central Africa as well. So you got brothers that got Congolese in them. You got brothers that got Ugandan in them. You got brothers from that Central Africa that are from that portion as well. You also have African Americans that may have an African father that is from, let's say, Somalia, or let's say it's from Ethiopia, or like Nipsey Hussle. His father, is Eritrean, but his mother is from America. He's an African American. It's just not. I would say most people you meet will be West African, but there are exceptions to this. We just all didn't come from one place. And when I say this, I mean your immediate ancestors. Some of us have ancestry that goes back, to other civilizations, but immediate ancestors, we talk about West Africa, Central Africa, and then you have exceptions to those rules as well. Okay, I have an African father from Ghana. I never knew that truth of story. I never knew that. That explains a lot, but I never knew that. His father's from Ghana, my father's from Gambia. There you go. Black Panther, were any of the Orisha ever physical beings? Yes. Many of them were humans that were deified as in their death. The best example of that I can possibly give you is Shango, who was a king, what they call an Alafin, which is king in Oyo. I believe he was, I always get the number wrong. I want to say he was the fourth Alafin. I want to say that. I know Orunmila was the third Alafin. I can't remember. Nah, I know a con in this video. This ain't an Akan video. You make your own Akan video, truth historian. Can't please everybody. But to say this, the Akan tradition, which is called Ogoun, I really admire their synchronicity because they don't have what I just gave in this presentation of different factions, because most of their tradition came from one person that came to the States and taught a whole bunch of people, and that's how it branched out. Although they don't have as many worshipers as we do, they all pretty much do the same thing, and I kind of wish we had that. So salute to the Ogoun worshipers. I wouldn't mind learning more about that system. Is it possible for anybody in America to be a direct descendant of Egypt, or did they all die? Direct descendant? No. Not of, I mean, you can have it in your lineage, don't get me wrong. But direct descendant, because the Egyptians these days are Arabs. And I don't think you're a descendant of those people. Then you got to take it back. And, you got the Syrians, you got the Greeks, you got the Arab. So many people came through Egypt. So it's hard. It would be extremely, the possibility is very low that you're a direct descendant from Egypt. Not to say that you don't have it in your genetic makeup, because my wife and brother Kofi have a haplogroup that goes back to Ramesu the third, I believe it is.
I think it's
Ramesu. Yeah,
I think
it's haplogroup E-V38, and I've seen it pop up in a lot of African Americans. So although that's not your direct descendant, you are related to him in some form or fashion. Truth of the story is a discrimination. Enigma 9 times 9. What was your highest percentage on your DNA test? Looking in the chat. waiting on Brother Enigma to respond. I appreciate all y'all tuning in. And I probably forgot to mention this, but the reason why I came up with this presentation idea because I used to practice a form of Regla De Ocha, and I didn't know it. So being that I did not know it, once I found out what I was practicing, and there were so many differences, and the deeper it went on the Isese side, I wanted to arm you with the same knowledge to be able to look for things to determine whether something was traditional or something was a later version. Because I know if you're like me, it's important for a traditional route. That was important to me because I wanted to do things the way my ancestors did it. And I know a lot of people that that's important too as well. So this, like I said in my on Facebook, this is not an attack on, nobody. I appreciate the Lukumi people for what they did to keep the tradition alive. I appreciate the Cuban Babalaos in the 60s and 70s. I appreciate everybody that kept this train going. But if it's important to you to practice a more traditional route, I wanted to arm you with that information. Nigeria. Okay, Enigma 9 times 9, then you're Nigerian. That's the majority of your DNA. You're Nigerian. So maybe you should look at Orisha worship.
Yeah, majority of mine is Nigeria too, but I look at Nigeria and Ghana because my father's folks came from East. Both my mother and my father came. Ancestors came from East Africa. My fathers, they came from Uganda. They migrated from Uganda into Nigeria, and then my mother's, they came from Kenya. They ancestors came from Kenya and migrated into Ghana. So I look at the Ogoun system in Ghana, and I look at the Ifa system in Nigeria. Even though there's a bunch of ethnic groups in Nigeria, I just hadn't buried it down to which specific group that I belong to now. But now that African Ancestry have a payment plan, now you can actually get on the payment plan, and African Ancestry gives you the precise ethnic group that you belong to. You know that being they do the payment plan now?
That ain't for me, brother. I'm just gonna keep it. That ain't for me. That is not for me. Brother Truth Historian said he need to find what a con are tall. It might have been from your mother's side of the family you got that height. Adebayo, Ifamuwiya, Iwa, OJBC. There are many synchronisms. Yep.
Hey, Ben, can you just run back what we can expect next week for the listening audience so they are aware?
Next week, Sunday, same time, I'm going to bring one of my Ogoun teachers, Ogoun Diran, on the platform so we can talk about how to get started in Isese Orisha worship. That's what we're going to do. So come on in.
He had a question too. He said, can you touch on hybrids?
Hybrids. Hybrids are you'll see more hybrids today than Isese. I will say that. And it's just because the system has transitioned through so many stages. And then there are some people that do not want to practice Isese. They want to practice the hybrid version. That's their right. It's everybody's right to practice, within every system you pick. But you will definitely see more hybrids than you will see traditional in the diaspora. I've seen Orisha fuse with, I mean, you can't imagine. I mean, everything from chakras to zodiac signs to crystals to just Reiki to, I mean, everything. None of this has anything to do with Orisha originally, traditionally. But people like to group things together that they practice for their benefit. And if they think it's beneficial, they start teaching others. And after a while, you can't tell unless you're trained that this came from a different system or not. So that's usually what happens. Look, I'm not saying you can't practice Isese and do any of those other things. You want to do those things, do them, but you have to keep the integrity of the system. You can't mix them together. If you want to do tarot cards on the side, do tarot cards on the side. Don't tell me you're doing an Orisha reading and they're tarot cards. This is not an Orisha reading anymore. How do you feel about practice and organizers of Akumalu? Yeah, next question. Of the books, are there any family? Of the books, are there any the family doesn't own that we should all go in and gain information? I'm working on getting all of them, actually. I have one that has escaped my grasp temporarily because they're out of stock. I found a website that was selling them for like $49 and I purchased one. But when I purchased one, he called me and told me that they were out of stock. So gonna have to wait. Gonna have to wait. Gonna have to wait. I'll hit you offline, Sister Julanda. How is it compared to what Jabari practiced and many differences? I'm not too familiar with the Shrine of Ma'at's practices. I think that's what Jabari's temple is called, Shrine of Ma'at. I'm not too familiar with their practices, to be honest. So I can't really speak too much on the differences between what I do and what they do. I wouldn't be able to tell you. That would probably be a better suited question for Sanjeti, because I think he's more involved in that arena with the Temple of Anu and the Shrine of Ptah and the Shrine of Ma'at, and I know they do things together, so that'd probably be a better question suited for him. All right. There's no more questions. We can wrap this thing up. I don't want it to be too long.
Uncle Banu had a question, but I can't see his question. It says not popping up in the chat. Kofi, you know how to go in there and grab, you know how to be filtering to a different response?
Yeah, it got him in. I'm in the control panel on Mossi now. I just removed him from it. He's in there hitting. Somebody must have accidentally hit him and put him in a hidden user. So when he get put in a hidden user box, you can't see any of these things. It's like they've been blocked. I just removed him from it. Let me see. Let me update it and make sure it don't pop back in there. But yeah, he was in the hidden user box. He wasn't in the block word box. He was in here. I just removed him. So ask him to try to type something in now, see what happened.
Moye, brother Ogoun Bola, yeah, Shogun Aro, Iran Oku Iniyan Oye. Don't y'all worry about that. That's Ogoun talking.
You're trying to flex.
No, you ain't talking. You have red hair.
Oh shoot!
Every haircut you get, you put it online talking about, oh, you try to flex.
Oh.
Kofi, try it now. He said he just tried to comment. It's the same thing.
Right. I just went off of it. I clicked off of it. It went right back. His name popped right back in. Let's see. They don't put this studio.
YouTube must be blocking him. I gave him the link though if he wanted to come ask a question. I don't know if he able to, but let's do it again, Kofi. Fix it.
I just did it, but I'm gonna have to wait till we go offline to actually update it because it won't let me update it, and then it's got me in this studio beta, and I'm gonna have to go out the studio beta to the original.
Uncle New, tell Uncle New to send his question to my inbox, man.
Tell him I'm gonna fix it for him, man. Just tell him it's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to wait till we get offline to fix it because it's just popping. Every time I get off of it and go back in without me actually saving it, it's putting it right back in there. But I'm gonna fix it.
Well, it might be Uncle Banu.
I just sent him a message. I hit you up, Baba Ode.
I don't know how that happened. Let's see.
See his brother Banu.
Let's see. It won't even let me go back.
Moving.
Hey Ben, what's up, yo?
Hey, what's
what
up,
up,
man?
What's up,
late.
Black African Power? Boy, I see you getting it all
late.
Man. I know.
I'm late.
I'm cutting the grass, but you know I gotta make sure I support my main man, yo. You know what I'm saying? Come on, yo.
late.
Man, we was up to 5 o'clock. You about to go?
It's your fault. Entertaining them pseudos.
I know.
I know what you do. I heard about you. Heard about you.
Sean was like,
I heard about you.
Sean was crazy. I say, Sean, you crazy, yo. That shit was fun though. It was all good.
Y'all boy act like y'all ain't got no women. My wife would kill me. 5 in the morning.
I know, yo. I know, yo. Yeah, but see, we live with our wives, though. So you can't even play that game, bro. You can't play it. Not even a little bit, boy. Can't play it.
I don't want to. I don't want to be looking at y'all at 5 in the morning.
It wasn't meant to be that way. Sean did that, man. He came in there.
Hey, man, I went to sleep. I ain't had nothing to do with y'all being up at 5 a.m.
Sean, hey, Sean, do you not realize you went all the way in? I was like, damn, Sean, don't beat me up, yo. Yes, you. I was like, damn, yo.
Then I told Unc he acting like Saw with YP.
I said, dang.
Oh, come on, man.
I wasn't mad at him, Ben. That's his opinion.
I saw the link come up in the chat room. I did your link just like that. I went, nah.
Yeah. We had fun. I mean, you know what it was, though. It was good. It was fun. Sean made the joint. X made the joint. It was good. I thought I had fun. Shit, sometimes you gotta release some goddamn steam, though. Seriously. Like you got you. But I'm gonna get them two on the same page, man. He gonna have to sit in one of y'all classes. You gonna have to talk to him, Ben.
He ain't gonna listen. He ain't gonna
he gonna be like he did everybody. But he gonna get it though. My man X.
He ain't gonna listen, man. That brother
Kofi.
Hey,
What up?
What's
What up, Pump?
going on with you, man?
Chilling.
You should have seen your boy Sean last night, man.
I seen the link. I wasn't finna get on there. I was scared. I wasn't even finna get on there.
Nah, you already did your thing. You ain't had to get on. Sean had it. Sean was like, he shot me and X up and left, yo. I say, well, damn. I said, that's how family acts sometimes. Okay, bro. Shit. Yeah, I'm gonna get everybody on the same page. Watch, yo. He ain't where y'all think he is. Watch.
Yeah, all right.
You got a lot to learn. Everybody got a lot to learn, yo.
I don't trust your dang old judgment.
Nah. You would be the one to say that.
You've been batting very low lately.
Nah, I don't think so.
You've been batting real low.
Nahisha said, "What up, Unc?"
Nahisha, what's up, bro? Yeah, I might be bad.
We ain't gonna mention no names. You've been batting real low.
Who you talking about? You gotta tell me who you talking about. That's funny, yo.
All right, let's get off the air then.
Oh yeah, get out the air and tell me, yo. That's funny, yo.
All right, Kobe, you want something? You want to say something before I hang it up?
I appreciate y'all for coming out. Killmonger's Corner. Link is in the description. Go ahead, close us out, Unc.
Hey man, Mossi Clan Warriors, man. Y'all already know what it is, man. It's a powerful situation over here. Appreciate the brotherhood, appreciate the brothers and the sisters. You know what I'm saying? Man, y'all know if y'all want to know about West Africa, man, this is the foremost channel, man. I appreciate you, Ben, Kofi, Nahisi, Sean, you know what I'm saying, man? I appreciate the cohesiveness in the information and the solidness, yo. And goddamn it, I appreciate that journal right there. So y'all keep doing what y'all doing, right? We here. And we ain't going nowhere, yo. We're gonna make sure that West Africa is put in its proper perspective. Really, last night, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we was really talking about West Africa, and I made this statement, Ben. You know what I said? Watch this. I said, arguably, the single most important thing that was ever brought to mankind was the inoculations. You know what I'm saying? That was given to the Europeans from West African people. That's arguably, bro. They trumped the Egyptians and everything. They trump reading, writing, engineering, all that. Because if you did, right, then you can't do none of that. So arguably, my point is, right, that West Africa gave the world something, you know what I'm saying, that is probably one of the greatest inventions known to humanity. That's a fact. Can't nobody beat me on that. So enough of that West African shit didn't have no signs. Enough of that shit. We gonna get off that page. We off that. Because I'm gonna beat niggas up on that. Appreciate y'all.
All right, y'all. See y'all. What was next week? Next week, when y'all doing something, Kofi? When y'all doing something, Sean?
Hey, nah, man, you got the interview up next.
Oh, I'm next week?
Yeah, you said you got the interview.
Yep, that's what you said.
Y'all was doing something in between that.
Nah, we gonna fill it in, but you got the interview next week. We on hold.
Right. Next week, Sunday at 11. I'm back at it.
All right. What interview, y'all? What interview? What I'm missing?